What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, we're going to look at a video that was put out on the Axanar YouTube channel, which are the ones that most, if you're a Star Trek fan, know had a big dealing with Paramount and CBS, which he'll explain. So basically, this isn't me bashing his ideas, since obviously he has his own opinion, as do I. So this is just me commenting on how I feel, and let's get to it. Alright, so here's the video. Let's go.
Hey everyone, Alex from Axanar here, and this is probably going to be our most controversial video that we've ever released. Why? Because I'm actually going to defend Alex Kurtzman.
So here we go. He's going to defend. This is his defense of New Trek. Is basically what it is.
So people have said to me, Alex, why would you defend Alex Kurtzman? Did CBS and Paramount try to sue you into oblivion? Well, yes, they did. In 2015, CBS and Paramount sued Axanar and myself for copyright infringement. Now, the real reason they sued us was because the Vulcan scene came out, the first scene of the full-length episode movie, and it was just too damn good. They told us that in settlement talks, they said it in depositions, and they told the judge that point blank. I really can't hold a grudge because we were too good, and they decided to make a corporate decision to sue us.
Now that I have to, that I would say is pretty much a fact. I've seen the Vulcan scene. I actually liked it. It's very reminiscent of, your usual Star Trek story. Um, of course, in the grand scheme of things, it depends on how it's going to play out. But in and of itself, was a really good scene, and I'm really curious to see how it's all going to play together. Which, of course, we'll just have to wait till next year to find out.
It is what it is. Look, here I am sitting on a fully finished USS Ares bridge, and we're in the middle of making the next two episodes of Axanar with
That must be nice, because I would love right now to be sitting on the bridge, fully functional bridge of the USS Tripoli. Granted, it'd be a little bit more to the future, like an Odyssey class ship, since according to Memory Beta, it was one. But I don't have that kind of money or support. But it'd be nice if I did. I don't know if I would let Paramount, or in this case Viacom CBS, be a part of it, unless they were really willing and they didn't want to destroy and ruin it. But we all have our dreams, right?
I don't have time to hold a grudge. We're too busy having fun. And I separate CBS the corporation from the Star Trek franchise, which I love doing.
I think that's a value, a good argument. What people do doesn't always reflect everything that's going on. It's not Star Trek that sued Axanar, it was CBS Paramount. So that does make sense.
So I can look at what Alex Kurtzman and the Star Trek shows are like and give you my objective opinion without any baggage from what CBS decided to do to us. So here's my take on Alex Kurtzman and the new Star Trek they were saying, whether it was Discovery or Picard or Lower Decks or whatever's next. First thing, the first two seasons of any Star Trek show are very exciting. I mean, after Star Trek returned to the small screen for Star Trek The Next Generation in 1987, 20 years after the original series, I mean, the first two seasons are unwatchable. It is bad 80s sci-fi. But we joke about it all the time, but we need to really remember, that the fan base was segmented. I mean, a lot of people just blew Next Generation. I'm not
Yeah, I mean, this whole like first two season things does kind of make sense. There were some really, really bad episodes in Next Generation. There were some that, you know, the characters are trying to find out where they are. You know, you got actors who are trying to take these characters, which are just appearing on the screen for the first time, and trying to make them work and figure out who and what they are. Um, yeah, a lot of like I've gone back and watched a lot of them, and it was just like, wow, this really was bad. Um, um, the first, two episodes, the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine, I do like. That was really good. Um, but those few in the beginning just were kind of really weak. I'll admit that. But that's as far as I can go. I can't say anything for the rest of well, season two in particular, because by then it fell in that wrong time as like I was graduating high school and moving on to other things. I just wasn't able to invest all that much time into Deep Space Nine, and so I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it. I watched the other ones, but because I always like those, so I have to go back and watch all of Deep Space Nine. But even that first season was it was a little weak. I'll I'll give him that.
So when Worf shows up and Cisco shaves his head, then Deep Space Nine becomes really, really good. Voyager, well, they spent the first two seasons, they couldn't get out of the way of the Kazon, for Christ's sake. So that really, nothing good there. And then Enterprise, same thing. First two seasons, really mediocre. And then gets into the wars and starts, it gets better. So really, if you look back at the history of Star Trek, the first two seasons of any Star Trek show are pretty abysmal. Now, with Alex Kurtzman, I'll give him the first two seasons of Discovery, right? Because the third season of Star Trek that he
Okay, now he's going to go into something like different as far as producing, but now we're in season three of Discovery, and it also is abysmal. It is just I don't know what you can really say it is. I mean, besides the whole like everything. Well, everything sucks basically. The writing sucks, the story sucks, the acting sucks. Um, there's a fine line between trying, and this is why I think prequels get always the hardest reviewed, is because you're going back. But in this case, this is a prequel we never needed, nor did we ever want. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that later. But I know people didn't really want Enterprise, but it kind of grew on them over time because, at least for me, in my personal opinion, this was a show that kind of explained how we went from being United Earth to now having the United Federation of Planets. So it's how we kind of got to where, you know, when we see Kirk and Spock in the original series. So I, I can give Enterprise that pass. Discovery doesn't get that pass because it doesn't really do anything other than it seems to be just grabbing shit out of thin air and trying to make something of it when there really isn't anything there. And then, of course, you've got, Mikey Spock, which is totally uncharacteristic for just dumb. I like science. I mean, seriously. And then, Michael Burnham, as Duncan likes to say, she's the best ever. I love that. But yeah, it's not good writing, and this whole thing. Well, we'll get into it. 'Cause I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here.
Was Star Trek Picard, and I happen to really like Star Trek Picard. I think a lot of people like Star Trek
Okay, full stop. Like one person like Star Trek. um, yeah, not a lot of people did. I don't think as many people as most would think like that show. It again suffered from the same fate of Discovery of being. It may have been a show we wanted to see as Nemesis kind of just abruptly ended. At least how I feel about it. We didn't really have a good goodbye, like the original series, like Undiscovered Country. That ending, that was nice. Um, but you run into that of the butchering of the characters, of them being not even former shells of themselves, completely different. I mean, Picard just being belittled by every single freaking female on that show. I mean, it was like a feminist free for all. It was horrible, and the forced cursing. Like, I'll be the first to admit I curse a lot, but I'm also a blue collar worker, so that's like almost like our second language, you know. And but even I was just like, oh my god. I mean, we've had cursing in Star Trek before, but it was done properly. It didn't seem so forced. Like the sheer fucking hubris or shut the fuck up. When the Admiral told Picard that. It just seemed so forced. Even if they did talk that way, it just was so out of place. Like, they came up with a script and say, okay, where can we throw in an F bomb? Where can we say bullshit or whatever? Where can we put these words in? Not that it was a natural progression of just the way the characters were talking and the flow of the script. It was just, okay, we have this script, where can we throw curse words in? That's the way it felt to me. And 7 and 9 all of a sudden just being this absolute homicidal maniac. And just completely detached from where we left her in Voyager. Yeah, time has passed, but that doesn't mean you gotta turn every character into an empty shell. You know what I mean? And just this whole like dystopian Orwellian view of the future was never what Star Trek was. If you go back and look at the interviews of the real Trek, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, the original series, Next Generation, how they felt that what Star Trek represented is nothing compared to the crap we're getting now. It's not. And the fact that they went along with it just shows, I don't know exactly what the correct terminology to use about how you can let yourself just become so ingrained in identity politics and the far left bullshit that you actually let yourself lie to yourself so much that you end up believing it. I guess that's the best way to put it.
It was pretty damn good Star Trek. People will argue about the story or the way they took the character. Hey, that's just the way it is. It was good Star Trek.
That's not an excuse. Excuse me. That's not even an argument. Oh, what? That's just the way things are. I mean, Jesus Christ, you sound like someone's who's down on their luck and is just like, well, I guess that's just the way things are. Well, no, when you're at the bottom, you can only go one place, up. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make something out of yourself. There's plenty of examples out there of people who've done that. Giving up is not an excuse, or just giving in and bending the knee is not an excuse.
So I'm going to give Kurtzman the first two seasons of Discovery, which frankly I don't think are that bad. In the realm of Star Trek, they're pretty good. Now you may not like the story, you may think it's some bullshit argument that it's social justice warrior, Michelle Burnham, all that nonsense. But if it wasn't called Star Trek, we would all be raving about this great new science fiction show that we're about to be called Discovery.
I'm going to say a very huge, gigantic, humongous press X the doubt. No one would ever say that. You can't say that because you take away the Star Trek part of it that people are going to enjoy it. Yes, it has to do with the woke bullshit and the SJW crap and the Mary Sue of Michael Burnham. That everything, the whole Star Trek universe revolves around her. No. It never was one person. It's always been an ensemble cast. It should be about everybody, not just one person. Even though there is that main person, the other characters are just as important. They all work together as a team. Not this bullshit that Discovery is, where everyone's at each other's throats, just absolute stupidity. That you're going to have someone who commits mutiny, ends up in jail, and now all of a sudden is back in Starfleet and, again, like Doomcock says, the best ever. That's ridiculous. It really is. And no one in their right mind is going to go, well, this is good science fiction. No. Nobody's going to say that. You can't, it's like that old adage of, now if I can remember what the old adage was, you can shine a turd, it's still a turd, right? That kind of thing. Shit is still shit. Crap is still crap. Nothing's going to save you from bad writing, bad storytelling, bad acting. Those things are still going to be there no matter what.
And then you'd be looking at it in terms of the Expanse or something like that. So it's not so bad. Second of all, the landscape has changed dramatically. Now with streaming services, shorter seasons, and serialized storytelling, just the way we tell Star Trek stories has changed. Now you may not like that. You may be happy that Star Trek Strange New Worlds with Captain Pike is going to go back to more episodic kind of Star Trek storytelling. Great. The fact is the landscape has changed. And that's where Discovery played. It played in a landscape where everything was streaming and everything was serialized.
That's all fine and dandy, but again, that's not an argument, nor is that excuse for crap. There are plenty of episodic shows out there where every episode is different that get canceled and fail. There are plenty out there that are serialized that get canceled and fail. Streaming has nothing to do about the way you tell the story. It's how the story is delivered which is important. You can have serialized shows that are good. You can have episodic shows that are good. That's not the problem. The problem is the delivery of that. if you don't deliver the show, if you have crappy writers and crappy actors, or actors that are given crappy lines, or directors who don't know how to direct, or people who just don't know Star Trek, which seems to be almost everyone, to go in there and try and tell a story, but the way they do it doesn't work. And it's not working. That's what the problem is here. It's not working. It's not the way that it was delivered to us. Yeah, we know CBS used Discovery to push CBS All Access. They're using Star Trek as a cash cow. That's basically what they're doing. Same thing with Disney and Star Wars. They're trying to use the fan base that's already there to suck people in to go to their streaming network. But a lot of people aren't really happy with everything being streamed, especially something as important as Star Trek that should really be available for everyone. But people are getting to the point where they're getting sick and tired of having to have 16,000 different fucking subscriptions to Hulu, Netflix, and this and that, and Disney Plus, and CBS, and Peacock, and this. You know, sooner or later it's going to the point where it's going to actually be cheaper to have cable TV than it is to subscribe to every single one under the sun. As much as cable TV is, let's face it, expensive as hell, if you need all those stations. If you're just going to stick with your major networks, it's not that bad. But to have all these different services and subscriptions and trying to keep track of everything, and everyone has their own streaming service, it's gonna get annoying. At least for me it's annoying. Then again, might just be because I'm old. I'm more than happy and satisfied of picking up a remote and just hitting the channel button till I get to where I want to be. I guess you could pre-program your internet to have links that you can just quickly go to everything too, but still, the landscape changing doesn't give you the ability to put out crap, because a turd is still a turd. No matter how many times you polish it, it's still always going to be a turd.
So, the storytelling was different in the original structure. A lot of fans really didn't like that, and that's okay. But you gotta accept the fact that things are different. So many fans want Star Trek: The Next Generation season 8, and I get it. It's what you're comfortable with. It's what you grew up with, right? You want that storytelling that we saw in The Next Generation, or Deep Space Nine, or Voyager, or Enterprise. But there's a reason to do shit on Star Trek. Everything by the time you got to Enterprise, it was a copy of a copy of a copy. Single stories. It's all been done before, right? If you want that, if you want Star Trek: The Next Generation season 8, you can see it. It's called The Orville. So go enjoy it over there.
Which a lot of people are exactly doing that, because that's the way good storytelling is. Again, it's the way the story is told. If you tell a crappy story, people aren't going to watch it. I mean, I don't know how much you gotta, if you tell a shitty story, if you have characters no one can get behind. I mean, I've never heard the theme song for Discovery. I've heard Picard, because I did watch Picard. So, I'm only basing this on Picard. I can't say the same for Discovery. But when you watch Star Trek, you know who all the people are. You know all the characters. You even sometimes know the sporting characters. You also know all the theme songs. You know next or the original series. You know Next Generation. You hear Deep Space Nine. You hear Voyager, and yes, you hear Enterprise. We're not going to get into debate about that, but I liked it. It fit what you were seeing visually, and it made sense to what the premise of the show was. So, me personally, I liked it. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but again, that's their opinion. They're absolutely allowed to have it, but I actually liked it. And if you didn't like it, come hang out sometime so I can play it for you. Um, 'Cause I'm just an asshole like that sometimes. Hey, at least I'm honest, right? But um, and I totally forgot where I was going with this. Anyway, so let's get back to the video. So,
What we're getting from Kurtzman is something very different, whether it's Discovery or Picard or Lower Decks. Now look, I'm not crazy about Lower Decks. Not because I think it's bad, it's just not my cup of tea. Earl Grey hot. It isn't.
oh God, seriously, come on, Alec. You just had to go there, didn't you? Oh God, Earl Grey hot. Well, you know what? I prefer my coffee, and give me a minute. I'm gonna have a sip of it now. Oh, my throat's getting a little dry. Um, but I have not seen Lower Decks yet. I've heard people talk about it. Um, I'm not that worried about Lower Decks because, in my own opinion, it is, for all intents and purposes, a different Star Trek. It would anything be kind of geared more towards kids. It's lighthearted. It's funny. It's a comedy, and it's animated. So I don't put it in the same universe as Kirk, Spock, Janeway, Picard, Riker, Jane. I already said Janeway. Hi, Captain Archer. Cisco. It's not part of that universe. They may reference it a lot, but things like well, definitely Discovery and Lower Decks are not in that same universe. I know Picard is supposed to be part of that, but that was mainly because of the whole J.J. Abrams destroying Romulus. So I'm not exactly sure where I want to put that yet. But this whole Next Generation Season 8 thing, I don't think we wanted to see the Next Generation Season 8. We went back with Enterprise, and I think that was good. It served its purpose of what it was supposed to be. Discovery does not serve a purpose. No reason to go back in time again. We need to go and continue on the stories. Does it have to be in the 25th century? Does it have to be 26, 27, 28, 30, 40, 50? No, you could still stay within, a certain time, but you have to make it believable. The fact that Discovery is so technologically advanced makes it so unbelievable to begin with. Now, I get it, you can't exactly throw up a screen that looks like the old Enterprise with you know, 1960s push button shit. Okay, you know, I get that. I understand that. And of course, it made Next Generation a lot easier because you could go advanced because you're in another century. But and also time and technology changes from year to year. So what was available back in 1960, we don't have now. But at the same time, you got to do it right. And I think, to be truthfully honest, in my best opinion, Enterprise did it the best. Enterprise was able to go back in time and give us a believable ship with believable controls and a decently designed ship, not the Discovery. That is horrendous. That is the ugliest looking ship I've ever seen in my life. I've seen, I put it below the Jaeger class. Personally, I kind of like the Jaeger class a little bit. It could use some modifications, but in the end, as far as the way certain ships look, Discovery is all the way at the bottom. That is a horrible looking ship. Um, and then this thing about having bridges that are like that seem like they're warehouses. It's like, it's like they're on the Paramount lot or wherever they do it, and they're like, well, we have this sound stage that's 100 feet by 100 feet. Let's use the entire thing to build a bridge. It's like, why? You're on a starship. Even bridges on real ships aren't that big. Yachts don't even have freaking bridges that big. Um, and Navy ships definitely don't. I know. I've been there. Um, so have these big, giant sets are just unbelievable in and of themselves. Um, the windows, I'm not too sure of. Personally, I don't like them because I don't think they had. Well, no, they didn't have force fields back then. So yeah, if the window gets hit, they're all gonna die, and the chances of that happening are pretty freaking good. Now, I know when we get to the Next Generation, there's force fields, but if you remember, when you go back to the original series, whenever the Enterprise opened up the shuttle bay doors to let a shuttlecraft go out or to come in, they had to decompress it. The shuttle bay on the original series was open to space. There wasn't a force field, so if a shuttlecraft were to take off from the shuttle bay of the Enterprise, the original series, everyone had to be out of that shuttle bay or they were going to get sucked down into space. Um, so there's that. But like I said, Enterprise was able to pull off going back in time and making a believable ship. But to have like these, basically, when you look at Discovery and you look at Picard, it's like, are these in the same time period? Because that's the way it looks. They have those holographic screens and all this other crap that doesn't belong, and then just trying to wipe it away, saying, "Oh, well, this is all experimental." I mean, seriously, come on.
It's not my life, but that's okay. Other people love lower decks, and I think this is kind of where we need to understand the way Star Trek is now. It's just different. It's not what you're used to, and that's okay. Don't go tell me how Kurtzman is raping your childhood or whatever because it's not giving you the Star Trek you want. They listen.
I mean, okay, I get what he's saying about not the Star Trek that we want, but at the same time, it's more than just the Star Trek that we want. There are some things that you need to follow. And let's be honest, they weren't always followed. Um, there were continuity errors. I mean, we saw it with Voyager going back to 1986 and having a grand old time when we know that that wasn't the case. Because we know, if I remember correctly, from 92 to 96 were the eugenic wars with Khan. That's the time period that he comes from. So to go to 1986 and everything to be all hunky dory, and they explain it away as, oh, what happened in another place of Earth. It's okay, whatever. um, yeah, I get it. You can only do so much. If you want to go back in time to current time, it's not going to work in that case because of what was supposed to be going on. But, you know, it's never been perfect, nor do we really expect it to be perfect. But there are differences of what we want as Star Trek fans as opposed to the way that the property should be treated. Those are two different things. And I think what most people have an issue with is the way that it's being treated. It could be wrong, but that's the way I feel.
They want to be successful. They want to please fans, believe me. And I think what's happening is this is why you're seeing the Pike show. Okay? This is why Axanar, who is obviously everyone's favorite captain in Discovery, is coming back, and we're going to have a new show that's telling the story of the Enterprise. They're listening to you. They're trying to give you what you want, but at the same time, they're making shows for a different audience. So,
I mean, I get to a point, yeah. I mean, myself personally, I'm not really worried about Captain Pike, nor am I worried about Robert April. I just want to see good entertainment that's not in your face stupidity. Um, I mean, we know Star Trek's been progressive, but it's always been done in a mellow way, not in your face and to sit there and be like, okay, I want to be entertained. I want to forget about the world around me, not have it thrown in my face on something that's supposed to be enjoyable. That's not what entertainment is. You can still attack, or not really attack, but you can address social issues without being an asshole. And that's what Discovery and Picard were and are. Um,
we really need to understand that. Third, Kurtzman is here to make the Star Trek he wants to make, not necessarily the Star Trek you want to see. And you need to understand that. Back when Battlestar Galactica was coming back on, and I consider Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica to be the best science fiction show in history. When he was making that, when he was rebooting Battlestar Galactica, which was a beloved franchise, he went in a totally different direction. And the fan backlash was enormous. And I'll never forget this. I went to the 25th year reunion, which in 2003, that Richard Hammond with his friends and Ron Moore was invited. I mean, at this point, they just had released the trailer. People were up in arms. Starbuck was a woman. And Ron Moore came to this convention and stood in front of an angry room of Battlestar Galactica fans to tell them why he was doing things the way he was doing it. Now,
just to, this is just a curious question for me. Um, 'Cause I never really got into Battlestar Galactica, but I'm wondering if anything has to do with Starbuck himself. At least I think that's who I'm talking about. But everyone knows, and I could be wrong, correct me on this if I am, but Starbuck, now that was a different actor, wasn't it? I don't remember. But all I know is that growing up, I loved the A Team, and Dirk Benedict was in it. I think that was his name. let's just go with Face. Um, and Face was in Battlestar Galactica. So I'm wondering how many people put the two together and maybe we're a little mad about that. I don't know. Could be nothing, could be something. But yeah, even him being in Battlestar Galactica really just I don't know, I just never got into it. Like like Alex says, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Coffee.
And I'll never forget, he showed the trailer, and I thought it was amazing. I was standing in the back of the room. I thought it was amazing. I was excited. But I'm always pretty much why I don't have the best emotions in opposing change in shows that I love. So I'm like, this is going to be great. I can't wait to see it. There were a lot of angry fans. And Ron stood up front. I'll never forget this. He stood up front and he said, after showing the trailer, he said, you know, I understand a lot of you love the original Battlestar Galactica. He says, I love the original Battlestar Galactica. He says, but Universal hired me to tell the story. They didn't hire you. And I sat there and going, oh my God, that's pretty ballsy, but he's right on.
I mean, to a point, that is right. They hired him to make Battlestar Galactica, and he wants to kind of do it his way. But I think, see, this is hard because I didn't watch it. But if there's any Battlestar Galactica fans out there, let me know about this theory. Okay, this is the theory I have. I'm not sure about it. Like I said, I've never watched it. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that the reboot, for lack of a better term, of Battlestar Galactica stayed somewhat true to the story. It didn't go off on this, like, horrible writing, these kind of messages that are in your face, that it actually was still good entertainment and fun to watch without being overloaded with, you know, political correctness or whatever. If I believe, it actually was on for a while. But when it comes down to it, it's how it's still done. And I think this is still going with my theory that if the guy who just said that, I forget his name already, that said that Universal hired me to make Battlestar Galactica, and he too enjoyed the old Battlestar Galactica. That's probably why the show, I guess, was a success, as opposed to like Discovery and Picard, which it feels like not a single person on that entire crew has ever seen Star Trek. It's like they went to, like Netflix before everything was switched over, or they just looked at titles from, the little summaries of each episode, and they're just picking shit out and trying to tell a story around, everything else. It doesn't seem like it's being written by people who know anything about Star Trek, or how Star Trek is, what Star Trek stands for. You still can have, something that is like Star Trek has a main core. There's a main ideology there. To completely throw it out the window and go into another direction with it, it's probably a good reason why people have an issue with it. Because then it no longer makes it Star Trek. It makes it something different. And in this case, if it wasn't called Star Trek, it still would be a failure. It would still completely fail because of the way of the storytelling and the writing.
Okay? CBS hired Alex Kurtzman because they liked the way he wanted to go with Star Trek. They understood all the changes that were happening. And Alex Kurtzman is making the Star Trek he wants to make. It may not be exactly the Star Trek you want to see, but that's okay, right? They're getting there. They're trying different things, right? We've got what, 4 different shows, 5, 6 in development? I mean, they're really coming out with a lot of Star Trek.
Just because they're coming out with a lot of shows doesn't mean that's going to save anything or it's going to help anything. Especially when you go about the wrong way. We all know Netflix is never going to touch Star Trek ever again, probably. Because they got so absolutely screwed on Discovery Season 1. Just like Amazon has some issues with Paramount and CBS after Picard. So more likely these things are going to only be on CBS All Access, like Lower Decks. I don't think they have international distribution yet for that show because no one wants to touch it. The poison has been let out. And people are not happy, and we have the right to know that opinion.
So some of them you'll like, some of them you won't like. But you know what? It's Alex Kurtzman's vision. And we all need to give him a chance to find his legs. And I think, in the big picture scheme of things, he's doing okay. I mean, I love Picard. And so if 1 out of 3 is the record from so far,
Now it's 0 for 0, but then again, I really can't count Lower Decks. I haven't watched it yet, and I consider it to be something completely different. I think Lower Decks itself, if they don't push it to be in the same timeline as everything else, will work. It's geared towards a different audience. It's animated, like I said, it's animated, it's comedy. It could be just having a little bit of fun, but not be, not absolutely destroy everything that's been before. I think you can have that.
with these shows, I'm good with that. Lower Decks, Lower Decks is a door. I can go on there. And listen, as much as you may not like what they've shown so far, they've got great writers doing great work.
No, they've got shitty writers doing shitty work. Everyone that I have watched on YouTube, everyone complains about the writing, the story, which of course you get the story from writing it. So, if that seems to me the major problem is the writing, the way it's being told, the way things are set up. The major problem everyone seems to have is the writing. Look at Picard. You had Sochi saying, dude. They're talking like a bunch of millennials. It was all like 21st century talk. And then you had the Romulan brother and sister who some of the disgustingest, cringiest shit you'll ever see in your life. It was literally a brother and sister incest moment every time they got together. I mean, she had no problem getting in bed with him. I mean, not sexually, but getting in bed and touching him and being all kind of like, it was like, if you weren't my brother, I'd fuck you, but then again, I might just fuck you anyway. It was so cringy. I mean, you can write a good villain without having to involve that much vulgarity. That's not Star Trek. Star Trek was never about Well, maybe. I don't think it was. But still, to have characters that were like very ancestral, but and it was like it's like someone took the the saying incest is best, and was like, hey, we should make this part of Star Trek. It was so freaking bad. It was just oh, every time they got together, it was horrible. And just the writing with all the character writing was shit. And and some of the stories and just the way that it was portrayed was so insufferable. So you can't say there's good writers when the stories are complete shit, and that's where the writing, that's where the stories come from, the writers. These definitely are not people from the next generation, from Voyager, Enterprise, and certainly not Deep Space Nine. And oh my god! So there's absolutely no way. And I try to be objective, try to look at both sides of things, and but just what I constantly hear is how bad the stories are. You know, the whole Mikey Spock and I like science, and you know Michael Burnham being the best ever is just no. That's not good storytelling. It's not good writing.
And you just need to kind of expand your mind and think, all right, give this a chance. It may not be what I like. I may need to move on to other sci-fi shows for something, but they're going to keep coming out with Star Trek, and sooner or later, you're going to say, hey, okay, that's pretty good. So there you go.
But the question becomes, how many times can you do that before it becomes fatigued? Which seems to be what a lot of people got to be like Enterprise, because Star Trek had been on the air for so many years. I mean, from '87 to 2004, it's just Star Trek after Star Trek after Star Trek after Star Trek. Yeah, I get that. You know, like Alex said, that you can only do so many stories before they start repeating themselves. Yeah, I get that, but the same thing's going to happen here. So I think he missed his own point when when he said that it's a copy of a copy, because eventually that's going to happen again. And we're seeing it with Hollywood now. Hollywood itself is nothing but a copy of a copy of a copy. You know, all female Ghostbusters. Now they want to do and was it Charlize Theron wants to do a all female Die Hard, which, if I remember correctly, there's really only one person in Die Hard. That was McClane. But whatever. Um, but that's the thing. I mean, no one has an issue. Really, no one really, honestly, has an issue with an all-female cast if the story is good. Ghostbusters 2016 was not a good story. The CGI was horrible. I mean, putting a dance number in the middle of it, that was stupid. Or that was at the end. Either way, it doesn't matter. It was still stupid. Um, you know, the Chris Helmsworth was in it, and he was constantly belittled by the female actors because you know the director was male is a male feminist, and those are the worst kind of people. Um, that and a really horrible dresser, but that's neither here nor there. But this is why it didn't work. It didn't. It had nothing to do. And we all know the bullshit that they gave us. Oh, it's because you hate women. You hate the women. And no, it had nothing to do with women. It had to do with horrible storytelling. Ghostbusters 2016 seemed to me more of a parody of Ghostbusters than it could than a story or a reboot, and it was just not good. You know, can an all-female cast pull something off? I think so. I mean, it depends what it is and how it's marketed and how you say it. The new Charlie's Angels, that failed miserably because Elizabeth Banks opened up her mouth. Um, and it was all about the whammon. Where the original Charlie's Angels, going back to the 70s, I believe, there was some feminist stuff in there, but it wasn't really in your face. It was just enjoyable TV to watch. Um, Even the Drew Barrymore Charlie's Angels, Lucy Liu and Karen Diaz, that I actually enjoyed them. Yeah, it was girl power, but it wasn't so in your face it was annoying. It was actually enjoyable to watch. I liked it. It was, it was fun. There was good comedy in it and good writing, and it just wasn't like in your face. It was just fun to watch. So, there's that.
There's the way I look at Star Trek. Okay, I think things have changed dramatically over the last 15, 20 years since we last started. I think the landscape has changed, the way we watch TV has changed, and I think that's just the natural evolution of the medium.
Well, that's great, but that's still, again, not an argument. It doesn't excuse bad writing, bad storytelling, bad characters. If something is not working, it's not working.
So overall, remember this: the landscape of TV and streaming has changed so dramatically over the last 20 years since the enterprise began. We're watching things a different way. We're binging. We're watching serialized programs rather than episodic programs. It's just a lot different. And also, remember, first two seasons of Star Trek always suck. So if you keep those things in mind, and then give Kurtzman the latitude that CBS is giving him.
Again, we're already past those two episodes, or those two seasons. Season 3, still shit.
Bring his vision to the screen of all Star Trek, not just one.
But there's a difference. If you want to bring the vision to all Star Trek, you got to bring partly the right vision. You may want to tell the story a different way, but there's still a main core to it. That, I think, is the important part. That, and actually get people who understand the franchise.
One show, right? We've got 3 Star Trek shows in the course of 3 years. You've got 2 seasons of Discovery, you've got Picard, you got Lower Decks, and they're coming out with more. I mean, we'll see 31. Strange New Worlds is coming out. The one that's going to be coming out the other channel, Protege or whatever that other show is called. They're coming out with a lot of Star Trek. So I think it's all good. I think we just need to relax and enjoy what we're getting. It doesn't mean you can't say, that's not my cup of tea. That's totally cool. But hey, enough of fan outrage. Okay? We're fans. I think it's what matters. Yes, I know we're passionate about it. But let's all appreciate it. And if someone doesn't like the Star Trek you like, that is great. Because remember, infinite diversity, infinite combinations.
Okay, I get that. And that's the way it should be. Of course, the radical left, SJW weirdos won't let that happen. If you don't like it, you're an isterism. We know, we hear it all the time. So, most of us rational people, like those of us to the right of Joseph Stalin, can sit back and say, okay, Alec, I know what you're saying. I don't agree with a lot of it, but that's your opinion, and that's cool. But I have my opinion too. This is how I feel. Which is why I hope in this video I portrayed it as my opinion, not me trying to trash Alec. Because I'm not. He has his opinion, I have mine. And even with our opinions not lining up perfectly, I am still overly ecstatic to see how Axanar turns out. When it gets released, you better damn well believe I'm going to be watching it. And if it's anything like the Vulcan scene, I'm going to enjoy it. As far as the other Star Trek shows, they've got a lot to prove. It's going to take 2 years, 3 years to do it for each individual show, because one thing I will absolutely agree on is the first 2 seasons aren't really all that great. They've had their issues, and that's gone through all the shows. So, I get that. But again, this is not any kind of direct attack on anyone. But at the same time, it's 2 people's opinions. And that's basically what this comes down to. That's a lot of what response videos on YouTube are. It's your reaction or your response to what somebody else is saying. It's your opinion of what someone else's opinion on how they feel about things. It's that interchangeability of ideas, which is the most important. If you can't talk about these things, as a civilization, you will fail. This is why communism, socialism, fascism are all bad things. There's no such thing as, oh, well, communism hasn't been done right, or socialism, Marxism hasn't been done right. There is no right way. It still ends up being one of the worst things ever. Nothing's going to change that. Same thing with fascism. It's never going to be a good thing. So, you have to have those natural laws, those that we have listed in the United States in our Bill of Rights, which is the most important document in all the land. This is why free speech is so important. This is why hate speech isn't a real thing. It's almost as bad as hate crimes. Yeah, I get the premise behind it, but it's not necessary. Hate speech, granted, these are 2 different things, really, but hate speech isn't a thing. You might not like what someone's saying, but it's not always hate. And disagreeing with someone doesn't make them, those people in World War II. Unless you're a radical leftist. Yes, they are, but it's the way they're doing it now, which is what people have a problem with, because it's not what we want. And I know this goes back to, this isn't the Star Trek that, I'm the one who's writing it, not you. But there's a difference between it being in your face and being a message within the show. That's where Star Trek succeeded, being a message within the show. Not in your face, the world sucks, everyone's gonna die, on all this other crap. Alright? Nobody wants that. We go to entertainment to be entertained, to get away from all of that.
My defense of Alex Kurtzman in Star Trek, take it for what you will. I tell you it just because that's the way I feel. Believe me, I ain't looking for a job with CBS and Star Trek. That's not gonna happen.
I totally have his back there.
All right, well that's my honest opinion, and I want us all to get along, appreciate our differences, and as always, live long and prosper and enjoy your Star Trek. Thanks all.
Well, that I understand and that I get. Yeah, we should be tolerant of each other. We all have our own opinions, and we're all entitled to them. And we shouldn't always attack people for their opinions. Now, when I say we shouldn't always attack, there are some things that are worthwhile to attack. You know, if you're going to say something that's really, really insidious, expect it, you know? I'm not going to get into what, because God knows what the hell YouTube's going to ban me over, or someone's going to cry over. But I think most rational people are tolerant. And I'm not going to get too much into the politics as I already have, but I think most of us know what we need to do. We have our opinions. They have theirs. We can get along. We've done it before. I think that's about as far I'm going to go into that. But yeah, guys, that is all I have for today's video. I know this was a really, really long one, but it was, 11-minute video that I think it was 11 minutes that Alec put out. So obviously I had my things I wanted to say and get them out there. But I didn't want to cherry pick things. I wanted to go through the entire video, which is what we did. So guys, if you enjoy it, you can hit me up on Patreon. It helps support the channel. You can do a one-time donation through Streamlabs. Of course, you can catch me on Twitter and all the other social medias, which are down in the description. There also will be a link to Alec's video. They also, after he premiered this video, they did a live stream. There will be the link to the live stream down there. And yeah, so that's about it. Everything's there. So guys, again, thank you so much for stopping by and watching this really long video. I'll share the sentiment of live long and prosper. And I will see you all next time.